Good evening everybody and welcome to our planning committee. Just to do some homework first, I'm just going to read out something for you in case we need it. We might not, but I shall read it anyway. Planning committee where members of the public are present. Welcome to this meeting of the planning committee. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcast system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recording for webcasting or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend recording of the meeting should this be necessary to maintain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the council held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else intending to film or audio record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit and officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Procedure for each item: the planning officer will present their report and committee members will ask any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on particular applications to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table at the front of the public seating area and will have 3 minutes to give their views. Once all comments have been given, the meeting will then continue for members of the committee to discuss the applications and reach a decision. No further comments may be made by members of the public. Thank you. We'll first go on to apologies for absence. Have we got any apologies for absence? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. We've got an apology from Councillor Davis and we've got Councillor Webb as substitute and an apology from Councillor Myers with Councillor Sargent as substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Item 2, declarations of interest and lobbying. To receive any declarations of interest from members in accordance with paragraph 9 of the Members' Code of Conduct and declarations of where members have been lobbied on an application in accordance with section 5 of the guidance notes on regulatory matters, the role of members and officers. Have I got any of those, please? Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've have an interest in items number 4 and 5. I am a resident of Noak Bridge and I also sit on the parish council that has considered this item. I have not taken part in any of those applications when on their consideration. I have abstained from voting. And I come here this evening with an open mind and wait to hear what the committee has to say, the members of the public and members of the committee. And I've also been lobbied on item number 6. Oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. To confirm the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 4th of June. All those in favour, please show. And of course, Terry, you wasn't here, and nor was you, Terry. Okay, so can we pass them as confirmed? Yes, thank you. I'm going to go on to item 4, which is, I've got 2 applications that are very similar, but we're going to definitely vote on them separately. We're going to take them really together. That is correct, isn't it, Charles? So if I read out 4 and 5, is that okay? Yeah? Item 4, use of 1 to 23 4th Street no bridge from sheltered housing to general needs housing on 1 4 Street, Note Bridge, Basildon, Essex. And item 5 is use of 3969 4 Street, Note Bridge, for sheltered housing to general needs housing on 39 4 Street, Note Bridge, Basildon, Essex. And I believe that's you, Eunice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So for my presentation, as the Chair has mentioned, I will be combining together the presentation. Please note that there is also an update sheet available for members to review, which I've passed around. The scheme is for over 55s, and there are 6 existing parking spaces and on-street parking to be retained. So both applications are for the reuse of the properties of 1 to 23 and 39 to 69 4th Street from sheltered housing to general needs social housing. These are the location plans available for the applications. This is for 1 to 23 4th Street, and this is for 39 to 69 4th Street. Here are aerial views as well, so we can see sort of the distance between the two schemes. This is for 1 to 23, and this is for 39 to 69. And we also have some site photos as well of the schemes. Oh, sorry, I think I went a bit too fast. But this is for 1 to 23, and we're now on to 39 to 69. So for the proposals, there will be no physical external changes proposed to the building, and the building would continue to operate and present as residential development, albeit with no age restrictions on future occupiers. It is not considered that the proposals would generate any design, residential amenity issues or highway concerns. Concerns were raised regarding mixed tenure between sheltered and general residents, and to address these concerns about mixed tenure, the council offers residents to either stay in their property, which will be converted into general affordable housing, or to relocate to another sheltered housing scheme within the borough. And I have my colleague Kathy here who can elaborate more on what this entails in her presentation. So provided the explanation, it is recommended that Planning Committee resolves that the applications for 1 to 23 and 39 to 69 4th Street be granted planning permission. Are there any questions?
Terry?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, no, I've saw the original report in 2023 regarding this, and I'm in general agreement with it anyway. But my main concern is around the parking still. I just thought we could do with a bit more clarification as to what parking is actually available. There's 6 available parking spaces I can see, but what are the on-street parking provision for the area, bearing in mind it's now going over, or will be considered to be going over to general needs housing? Thank you.
Thank you. So I can try and answer your question as best as possible. For any sort of housing related questions, I do have my colleague Kathy here to answer them. But in terms of parking, 6 vehicle parking spaces would be retained, and there's also on-street parking there. So a transport statement was was done, and the conclusions from that was that vehicle trip rates comparisons in the transport statement demonstrate that there would be no change in vehicle movements in the AM/PM peaks, although there would be a slight decrease in vehicle movements over the entire day compared to the current sheltered housing use where visits from carers would be expected. So that was the conclusion from the transport statement. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, mostly. You mentioned the carers. Well, as we know, most carers actually can't afford their own cars and usually rely on public transport. So I don't know how that kind of fits into the equation on this. So, generally, I'm not sure how that kind of answers how much parking or what the impact or the additional parking would be required once it goes over to general needs.
Councillor Webb, I could take that one. So we have consulted the County Council Highway Authority on this application, and following receipt of additional information, they have raised no objection to the application. They have recommended a couple of conditions which included on pages 26 and 27 regarding additional cycle parking and the provision of residential travel information packs for sustainable transport. So we've secured both those by condition as well. But as I say, we don't have any objection from the Highway Authority on car parking grounds to this application.
Have you another question, Terry? Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Kevin Bailey.
I've been on this committee a long while and I don't often get confused, but what really is the planning rationale behind this? Surely this is something that's go to the, if it's about housing, putting other people into, that becomes a cabinet member's decision. And we had this issue, if I remember rightly, at the last meeting where we all sat here discussing, it might have been meeting before last to be honest, discussing an issue on planning and really had nothing to do with planning. It was to do whether the cabinet member who's in charge of housing decides to put it in or not, and we all agreed on that, I think, if I remember rightly. So I can't see what we're voting on tonight regarding planning. I mean, what's going to be built? Is it all going to be redesigned? If that's the case, we're not having it. That's what I'm saying. Normally, we're looking at something that we can physically see is changing, which can affect the residents, can do this, that and the other. I'm seeing nothing other than somebody, a bit like somebody changes their house into a HMO. I don't see, that wouldn't be a planning condition, and I don't see why this is a planning condition. While we're here tonight talking about a planning policy, but it's not actually planning policy. In all honesty, it's a decision I think should be made by a cabinet member, which is exactly what we'd agreed at the last meeting or meeting before last. And don't quote me on it. That where we done that decision, it's an irrelevance as far as I'm concerned to the planning committee, not to the residents, I swear, but to the planning committee.
Michelle would like to answer that.
The application before you is related to the change of use of the building. So the cabinet decision that's been taken is a completely separate matter, and you're being asked to consider the planning considerations for making this application.
Okay, Kevin, any more questions? No? No? Anybody else? No? Alex, no? Okay. We'll go straight into members of the public. So, I believe Paul Daft is here tonight. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to belatedly intervene, but my understanding was that Kathy was going to take us through a presentation.
No, she's going to do it afterwards.
I see. Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you.
Are you here tonight? Would you like to come forward, Paul, and press the red button on the front? That's it.
There we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just to introduce myself, my name is Paul Daft. I'm a resident of Fore Street, have been for approximately 12 years, and I also sit on the Parish Council. Just before I start, I do have a statement from the Parish Council. A number of other residents were planning on being here tonight. Having said that, letters were only received, I believe, yesterday or the day before. So in terms of actually managing to get here, I live at 33, I haven't had a letter at all. So they do send apologies. They wanted to be here, but the notice was too short. So I'm speaking on behalf of them and also the 94 signature petition that was signed against the proposal. To go into our objection, Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here today on behalf of Oakbridge Parish Council to object in the strongest possible terms to the proposals to convert the sheltered housing schemes at 4th Street and Oakbridge from Class C2 specialist accommodation for older people to general Class C3 housing. First and foremost, this application represents the unjustified loss of much needed specialist housing for older people. These homes currently serve an ageing population in our community. National policy is clear. Planning decisions must reflect the growing and diverse needs of our society, including older people. The planning practice guidance highlights a critical need for housing for older people. That need is mirrored locally. The South Essex Housing Needs Assessment of 2022 shows Basildon must deliver nearly 1,000 additional sheltered housing units by 2040. Removing existing provision puts us further behind. The Council has not provided any evidence to justify this loss. Without a clear and compelling reason, this change of use should be refused as the principle of development cannot be supported. Secondly, the scheme fails to meet the Council's affordable housing policy. Together, these two sites would deliver 27 new dwellings. Under policy BAS S5 and national guidance, this scale of development should provide up to 9 affordable homes, but no affordable provision is proposed or even addressed. This is a serious policy failure. Thirdly, the proposed new dwellings would deliver poor living conditions. The flats fall short of the nationally described space standards, with floor areas up to 10% below the minimum required. There is also no evidence that the minimum garden or amenity space standards have been met. This would result in cramped, substandard homes, contrary to local and national policy. Fourth, the proposal fails to meet parking standards. Policy BAS 10 and adopted Essex parking standards require 34 parking spaces across both sites. The application provides only 12. The narrow road geometry of 4th Street and Bridge Street makes additional on-street parking unsafe and inappropriate. Chair, this application undermines planning policy on 4 fronts. It removes essential old people housing, it fails to deliver affordable homes, it offers substantial substandard accommodation, and it provides wholly inadequate parking. We would urge the committee to uphold planning policy, protect our most vulnerable residents, and refuse this application. On a personal note, I have 2 young children that cross that road every day going to school. Any additional parking would be an effect to safety, which would concern me enormously as a parent. Secondly, I know a lot of the people in the sheltered housing. They are good people. It's a lovely community. It's very well tended. There are plants, there are hanging baskets. I know several residents who are terrified to speak out, and these are their homes. They are retired people. They cannot and do not wish to lose the community that they have. And I do feel on their behalf, should this go through, it would be against decency and extremely unfair. And I say that on behalf of all the residents of 4th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I have let you go over the 3 minutes because we do apologise for the letters that some of them didn't get the letters.
It's,
so we
unfortunate.
hoped you would speak for them.
I
Thank
will
you.
do. Thank you.
Can I call upon Cathy Ayres, please, to speak for us? Thank you. Thank you, Cathy.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So Basildon, we've got 47 sheltered housing schemes in the borough and 3 leaseholder sheltered schemes. 4th Street, as mentioned earlier, is a sheltered housing scheme for over 55s. It doesn't have its own communal hall, but residents are able to use the communal hall, which is situated in the Kenilworth sheltered scheme, which is crossing over a busy road. They're not connected together. And regards to some stats regarding sheltered housing, at the end of April 25, this borough's got 10,713 social housing properties that we own. A breakdown of those is 9,027 are general needs and 1,686 are sheltered housing. There is a higher demand for general needs housing than sheltered housing on our home seeker register, and therefore we're looking to change this scheme to go into general needs. On the 1st of April, as of the 1st of April 25, 84% on our home seeker register are eligible for general needs housing, with the remaining 16% eligible for sheltered. So these figures show that whilst there is a recognised demand for sheltered housing, general needs accommodation is far the largest need across the home seeker register. With regards to the lettings, the last financial year we allocated in total 535 properties. 73% of those were let as general needs properties and 27% were let as sheltered housing. So as the available stock that was available, it showed that we've got a sheltered housing need for 16% on the housing register, yet 27% were let. So if we reduce this scheme to general needs, there's still sufficient stock to meet the demand on the housing register. It's also known that many applicants aged over 55 do not require the need for sheltered housing. Some of them choose to bid for sheltered housing because it is a quicker route for them to get housing than waiting for general needs. And if we speak to some of them, their preference would be that they would have bid for general needs housing had there been more general needs. Some often are working and they live independently, and therefore they don't benefit or need the support services that are offered on sheltered housing schemes. I can go into a little bit about what would be on offer for the residents if that's what you choose me, if you'd like me to do so, but it's not what I've put for my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We have no more speakers from the public or are here, so I'm going to now open it up to the committee. Anybody have any questions on this? Kevin.
It's just a quick. I missed it, and I apologise to the speaker, which is why it's really good to have people. We're asking to put something through that is 10% of minimum requirement in size. Is that correct? I mean that's an enormous amount. So you know, especially when we're sort of, you know, it just seems totally wrong if that's correct, and that's why I need confirmation, because I don't remember seeing it in here, but I'm just going by what depends.
The properties meet the correct standard. If they didn't meet the correct standard, we wouldn't be letting them as sheltered housing at the moment. So to change them into general needs, it's still the same properties. Some of them have got like a second bedroom that's not a second bedroom, it's a smaller room, but they've all got a double bedroom with the lounge and the kitchen and bathroom, which meets the standard let.
So just so that I'm clear, the comment that the gentleman said there is not correct, as far as the officers is council are concerned.
The properties are let at the moment. My understanding is if
I'm talking about what they're going to be, not what they are. What's going to happen to these properties? Is it going to be 10% below the minimum required standard, as the gentleman said, or is that just not correct?
I don't have the measurements of the properties with me. All I can say is we're not changing any layout of the properties. We're just changing the type from shelter to general needs. The layout of the properties are not changing.
Again, that's probably because how many years they were built, that was a standard that you had then. And I accept that. It's just like a car or something. Where if you haven't got a spare tyre in your boot, then you don't have to worry about having it for an MOT. But so that could be a standard like that. But if we're asking to give planning permission now, and it's by the standards that we should have now, then we're saying it could be 10% below minimum requirement as we look at the rules now. So what I'm saying is, if we don't know the answer to that, as far as I'm concerned, and I hate to be horrible to anybody, then we can't really make a decision until we've got that information, whether we're going to be going by old standards, which we can't go by. The new standards that we are required to go by, we don't know if that's correct. So it should, as far as I'm concerned, should be adjourned on that alone, because we are being asked to make a decision on something we do not know.
I questioned that at the briefing. Obviously, you wasn't there, to Kathy, and she actually gave me the same answer. There is a small bedroom as well as the main bedroom. It can be used as a bedroom. I don't know. It can be used as a store.
You're missing the point. We're being asked to pass something in planning law, which we are being informed could be 10% below minimum standard. Now, I accept that may be wrong, it may be right, but we as a council, before we make a decision on planning, should know whether what it's going to be is within the required national standard or not, on anything we have. I'm not saying for or against this. What I'm actually saying is, I don't see anyone can make a decision here when we don't know, and it's certainly no criticism of officers because you're going on past things. We don't know whether it's below national standards or not, but we've got information it could be. We need to be absolutely 100% certain as a committee and officers that it does meet required. If it's 10% lower, that's a huge amount. That's all I'm saying. I'm not for or against it in that sense. But I find you need to adjourn it because nobody on this committee, in my opinion, can make an informed decision when we don't know the size of these properties, whether they are in minimum standard or not. It's as clear as that.
Thank you, Kevin. I think you indicated to speak. No? Eunice, no?
Sorry, so in terms of that, it's noted in the committee report that the building was constructed in compliance with the standards and policies of its time and will remain unaltered. There'll be no increase in the number of bedrooms or associated level of activity beyond its original design, and that's in planning terms.
I totally agree with what you said, and that's exactly the point I made. In the old days, it was permissible for that size development to happen. We're now saying the standards have changed because all governments want to see us living a better standard of life, better accommodation, and we don't know the answer to that. I totally, you confirmed exactly what I said initially. By old standards, it was fine, and it's not changing. But if that doesn't meet the national requirements now, how can we make a decision on it? A policy, as a committee, make a decision on it when, again, it is no disrespect to officers, you don't know the answer, whether it's within the national guidelines, as we don't. And that's all I'm saying. If you don't know it, how can we make a decision on something so important, really?
Mike, I think you indicated to speak on this.
I did, Chair, but I don't think have we concluded Councillor Blake's line of inquiry?
Yeah, not really. No.
Councillor Blake, sorry, just having a look here. So the nationally described space standards were introduced in 2015, and they deal with internal space within new dwellings. So we can't apply nationally described space standards retrospectively for existing housing stock. So the nationally described space standards were introduced in 2015, and the standard deals with internal space within new dwellings. So we can't retrospectively apply the nationally described space standards on existing housing stock.
So if I'm hearing you right, because it's an old build, it doesn't matter if it's 10% under the national standard, because it's old stock. But if it's building a new build, it would have to be. So surely that's just not right. No one in this committee can think that that's right, that we're going to treat... I'm staggered. I'm absolutely staggered.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. So can I just confirm then that the points that the gentleman, sorry, I didn't hear his second name, but the parish councillor raised about quantity of affordable homes and parking spaces would also fall under the same categorisation that Charles just described, namely they met the requirements at the time, therefore those applications don't apply.
Yes, I mean the scheme was of its time and would have complied with relevant policies and guidance at that time, yes.
Thank you. Can I just ask a further question? So, Kathy, could you confirm, do we have a surplus of sheltered housing in the borough or a deficit, as suggested by the parish councillor?
So all our sheltered accommodation at present is occupied, but we do have quite a lot of them. So some when they're applying for sheltered housing, and sometimes they can be out of borough because there's not enough people in borough that want them. They can wait a matter of like a month to 3 months for them general needs people can wait for a matter of 2 to 3 years. So they are currently occupied at the moment, but the wait for some of them is very small.
You want another question?
Just another point of clarification. Am I correct in saying that there was a cabinet decision on this particular matter in 2023 that proposed the conversion of these units from general use to from sheltered use to general use? I only ask because I think Councillor Blake said that it hadn't gone to cabinet, but my understanding was that it may have done so. Charles, could you just confirm that, please?
Confirm that after Councillor Sargent has spoken, please.
Oh, sorry, I thought you...
Yes, okay, because I didn't know who went first. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to going over to general needs from sheltered accommodation, those properties are extremely small. There is no doubt, and I'd have to ask the officer that in today's world of what is being proposed, that they go to general needs, say there was mum, dad and 1 or 2 children, because it's being classed as 2 bedrooms. I don't know, you might get a cot in there, I don't think you'd get a bed in there. So that really is, and even if you had the actual bedroom, you know, for if there were 2 parents, the actual size of the living space, the kitchen and the lounge are extremely small because they were built to accommodate sheltered, you know, the ageing population, because they were actually downsizing, whereas this is going totally against that, and they're putting in general needs families. And so because of the demand that the officer has indicated on, the demand could be that children, families with a child or 2 children, could be accommodated them more because of need to a home rather than what is suitable for their actual needs. And that is not, you know, that is unfair, really. And then going back on the, you know, what the officer said about the sheltered accommodation, this was built to have a total mixed tenure. The officers admitted there are no vacancies. So therefore, we have an ageing population. Yes, our general needs are going up, and so are our sheltered accommodation. And it just doesn't seem manageable to give sheltered accommodation homes to families. So then it means that our sheltered accommodation people would have to leave and go into other sheltered accommodation if that's what they so wished. So there are so many changes, and I think Councillor Blake has made some really good points there on the size of the accommodation, as Councillor Daft did as well. And I think that all of that really must be taken into consideration, because what we wouldn't want is to change this policy and then have overcrowding, which is a strong possibility that could happen. Thank you.
And I think the point you made, Terry, was a child. But I do believe I asked this question at the briefing. I did. So could you answer that for Councillor Sargent, please, Kathy?
Thank you. Yeah, just to confirm, allocations made in any of our stock is in accordance with the allocation scheme. So regards to Forest Street, I know I mentioned there was a small room, but I did say it's not considered large enough to be a bedroom, so they're considered 1-bedroom properties. So in accordance with the allocation scheme, they would be for singles or couples. If the bedroom is, in some of our 1-bedroom flats, not just Forest Street, that If the bedroom is of a size that it's smaller than a double bedroom, then it would only be allocated to a single. If it was the size of a double bedroom, then it would be allocated to a couple. The little rooms, which people used to call them as the second bedrooms, they're not considered a bedroom because they're under what we would consider suitable to even be a single bedroom. So although there is that little bit of extra room, it's not classed as a bedroom. So it's not envisaged at this moment in time. This is family accommodation, but it would be in accordance with the allocation scheme. Obviously, when people move in and if their circumstances change and they go to have children, then they would join the transfer list for larger accommodation. I think you mentioned about the waiting list as well, about the number of sheltered accommodation. As I said sort of earlier on, the 16% of the waiting list is for sheltered housing, and yet the amount of accommodation we let last year was 27% of sheltered housing. And we do, going into our sheltered housing schemes, our residents from, some of them are out of borough and homeowners, because the demand is there, but it's not just for people that haven't got any accommodation, because there's so many of them, they become void. So but where our general needs, obviously homeowners would never be able to have general needs, there's not enough of them. But so we don't have a lot of voids of sheltered, so we have to open it up to other people. Does that answer all the questions? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor.
Thanks, Kathy. That was, I think I've got Kevin on as well. I don't know what I've done. Thanks, Kathy. That was very good, and totally understand where you're coming from. But we all know that if there's a couple, a baby may come along, and as much as we say, and us councillors, we all know we have it where people are coming to us on a regular basis telling us they're overcrowded, they've got children, and then it tends to be that if there isn't sufficient bedroom space, they have to use the lounge as a bedroom. Now, we all know that, and I'm just bringing this into the fore so that we can get this out in the open and discuss it before a decision's made, so that this doesn't happen, because it's not that. It isn't fair to the other people in the accommodation if babies or young children are there, you know. And we all know sometimes that if someone needs accommodation, and they've got a child, it's absolutely vital to get that child with a roof over its head. And I think we must all bear this in mind, as much as we say that this is specific housing. I think really, you know, we need to pay close attention to what we are going to agree on. Thank you, Chairman.
Would you like to answer that, Kathy? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just to confirm, Councillor Sargent, obviously the allocation scheme, we allocate to people on their current housing need at that time. So if someone's current housing need at that time is for a one-bedroom property, then that is allocated to them. Should their circumstances change, then there's provisions in the allocation scheme for them to transfer to alternative accommodation. As you're aware, you know, it is a matter of waiting for that accommodation. But that's the same in all of our stock, the same as sheltered housing. If their circumstances change and they, you know, family members move in and they need to move to larger accommodation, there's provisions in the allocation scheme for our residents if their circumstances changed, whether they're under-occupying or over-occupying. There is a relevant priority awards. But when they're first allocated the accommodation, it is based on their housing need at that time, and we can't foresee what their changes in their housing need is in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Baker, coming back, can I just say that you brought up about a decision on Cabinet in November 2023. Is that correct? Well, the decision on Cabinet, I have got this here in front of me, was under the Tory administration. There was recommendations.
Committee, please disregard the comment made by Chair in respect of the administration. As I said, it's going to be struck. It won't be accepted.
No, because I was answering Councillor Baker's question about
With
the
respect,
cabinet.
you've been advised by your officer. You made a cock up.
It should be.
You made a political statement.
You make plenty, and you
Yeah.
made one just now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you made a political statement again.
Would you like to carry on, Councillor Baker?
Yes, so sorry, my question was, I think Councillor Blake said earlier on that there hadn't been. Oh, sorry. I'll just wait for the legal counsel to confirm if I may, Chair. Thank you. Yes, so sorry, could the officers confirm whether there has been a cabinet decision on this change of use proposal or not?
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Yes, so on the 16th of November 2023, an item went to Cabinet where it was resolved. It was in respect of sheltered housing accommodation review, and the resolution was that the Cabinet approves the redesignation of properties on Felmore Court and 4th Street sheltered housing schemes to general needs accommodation for the reasons set out in the report. The Director of Housing and Property obtains any required planning approvals, and Director of Housing and Property be authorised to implement operational changes, including the provision of support available for tenants wishing to move out as set out in this report.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Sorry, I think this is my last question. So if I understand correctly, Kathy, if people currently living in 4th Street wish to remain in sheltered housing, they would need to transition to a sheltered housing scheme somewhere else in the borough. Can you just take us through how that transition process would work, and also what protection would be in place for vulnerable residents while they're waiting for somewhere to become available? Because if I understand correctly, they would be waiting some time, potentially not a lot of time, but some time to be transferred.
Yes, sure, no problem. Yeah, regards to if people wish to remain in the scheme or remain in the properties, then they would remain there on general needs, as general needs. If they want to move to alternative sheltered housing, then they can do that. They would receive high priority on the allocation scheme. So basically they would be a band A, so they would get like the first dibs as such on the available accommodation. It's been for a 12-month period, and during that period the allocation officers and the sheltered housing officers would fully support that resident, and if there's certain schemes they're interested in but they're not too sure what they're like, then we would obviously make arrangements for them to go and see them, and to help them make an informed decision. Should they say, I want to move to sheltered, and then while they're waiting they thought, actually no, I want to stay here, they can do that. They can change their mind during that 12 months. During the 12 months, if they do move, then we would help them with carpets. We would decorate their new property for them so it's nice and fresh and clean, and we'd also pay for the removals as well, so they don't incur that financial cost. We would, if they decide to stay and not move, and they move to general needs, if at a later stage they thought, actually I want to return to shelter, then the allocation scheme still allows them to do that. They wouldn't be a band A because that priority would have changed because the scheme decant would have finished. But there's many people that are in sheltered now and they move to alternative shelters, and the allocation scheme allows them to do that. And dependent on what schemes they want, they don't always wait very long unless there's a particular scheme they're waiting for, and some of them are waiting for particular types of properties in certain schemes or certain corners of certain schemes. They, you know, it's whatever they like of those schemes. During that 12-month period, as and when people move out and there's voids, then the voids would get relet as general needs. So for a period of time there would be a bit of a mixed tenure. Obviously everybody that is allocated from the council have, during their housing register application, they are processed, they're assessed, which includes if they meet the eligibility and qualification. Part of that is we check if there's any known antisocial behaviour, Obviously, at sign up, we obviously would be reminding them that there is obviously other people still living there. It's still partly sheltered at the moment, and make them aware. Anyone, everybody that has got a property with the council have a tenancy agreement, and they have to adhere to those conditions. I might add both sheltered and general needs residents all need to adhere to them conditions, and should any of them breach that, then obviously there is certain actions that the council can take. Is there anything else I've missed out? No. Is that okay? Does that cover it? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Baker, any more questions before we go into the vote? No? On the first recommendation, that the committee resolves that planning application number 240075/full be granted planning permission subject to the conditions set out at the end of this report. All those in favour, please show. Okay. Any abstentions? All those against? Thank you. We're going to the second vote now as well. That the committee resolve that planning application 240075/full be granted planning permission subject to the conditions set out at the end of this report. All those in favour, please show. Any abstentions? All those against? Thank you. Both of them have been granted. Thank you. I think we're going to have a comfort break for 10 minutes because it's very hot tonight. Thank you. We're going to resume the meeting now. Is everybody in their seats? Thank you. We're going on to item number 6, which is erection of up to 22 dwellings with formation of new access from Oak Road, outline application with all matters reserved except for access, at land between Crayside Kennels and Wesley Oak Road, Billericay, Essex. I think that's you, Thomas, is it? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application site relates to an open area of land with trees along the boundaries. The site is located to the north of Oak Road in Billericay, and the application is before the Planning Committee as it is a major development. The application seeks outline permission for up to 22 dwellings with the formation of a new access from Oak Road. All matters are reserved except for access, and the site is located within the Greenbelt. So this just shows an aerial view of the site. So obviously to the south is Oak Road, with the plot outlined, or the application site outlined in red. To the east is Wesley, and then to the west is Crayside Kennels. And then it's just some photos of the site, so it's quite an open field with boundaries along, with trees along the boundary. And then this is just the view from Oak Road. So the one on the left is looking west along Oak Road, and then the one on the right is just looking east along Oak Road as well. And so this just shows an illustrative site plan for the dwellings and access. And so the development is not considered to comply with any of the Greenbelt exceptions which are set out in the NPPF. Paragraph 155 sets out that the development of homes should also not be regarded as inappropriate development, and this in turn relates to Greybelt. So this is based on a number of certain tests, the first of which is considering whether it constitutes Greybelt land. Based on the Council's assessment of the application site, it is considered to constitute Greybelt. It's also assessed that there is a demonstrable unmet need for housing. However, the site is not considered to be in a sustainable location, and it does not meet the Golden Rules, and so therefore the proposal is inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. So this is another illustrative site plan for it. And so the development would have a central spine road with dwellings fronting either side and a communal green space to the north. The layout raises a number of concerns, with a number of plots which would be irregularly shaped and would appear cramped. The proposal fails to take into consideration the character of the surrounding area, and the dwellings which are proposed would be two-storey, which would not be in keeping with the surrounding area. The indicative layout shows private garden areas for each dwelling. However, it's unclear what size and depth these would be. However, landscaping is a reserved matter, and therefore these details would be dealt with separately should outline permission be granted. In terms of highway safety and access, a new access road, as mentioned, would be constructed through the centre of the site off of Oak Road. Essex County Council as Highway Authority have advised that there would be sufficient frontage to achieve the required visibility and width. However, they raise concerns about turning in and out of the site for larger vehicles, given the narrowness of the road. The development would all require the total of 64 parking spaces. It's unclear from the indicative layout how many car parking spaces would be provided. However, officers are not confident the development would be able to achieve the required parking standards. Essex County Council Highways have also objected on the grounds that the site's unsustainable location, lack of footways along Oak Road, and the limited access to public transport. There are no significant trees on the site other than around the boundary, but as mentioned, landscaping would be a reserved matter. With regards to ecology, Essex County Council Ecology have raised a holding objection due to insufficient information. The site is located in Flood Zone 1, however Essex County Council SUDS, as the lead local flood authority, have also raised a holding objection due to insufficient information. In terms of contamination and air quality, whilst there's no information submitted with the application, Environmental Health have raised no objections. The application would be exempt from biodiversity net gain due to being submitted prior to this being introduced. And this slide just sets out the key issues for the application, which are also detailed in the report. And then this slide sets out the planning balance. So the applicant has identified the council's shortfall in housing as a very special circumstance. Very significant positive weight is given to the provision of 22 dwellings. The proposal would have a significant impact on the openness of this undeveloped Greenbelt site, however, and these harms carry substantial negative weight. And as part of the overall planning balance, there are clear reasons for refusing the development, which in this case would not be outweighed by its benefits. So in conclusion, the application is recommended to members for refusal, subject to the reasons identified at the officer report, at the end of the officer report on pages 78 and 79 of the agenda pack. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I'll open it up for clarification now. Is there any questions on this? Anybody? Kevin Blake.
Just one, and I'm not in favour of this application at all, but just as for consistency, where it says positive, normally, whenever we have a positive come up there, one of it would be this would be added towards our housing needs. That we are, the fact that we're so many years behind our actual quota. We always have it on there.
5-year land.
And be for our 5-year land supply, and this would add to it, because that must be a positive. I don't agree with the application, but I can't understand why we always have it on there when we're going to pass something that officers have recommended. But now we're going to, officers want us to refuse it, it's been omitted. So can someone explain to me why we haven't put on there that these houses would add weight to us not having the adequate land supply? Why isn't it on there? Is it an omission?
I mean, it's not specifically written that it would contribute to the supply, but it's written on the slide that it would provide a provision of 22 dwellings.
No, my point is, every application we ever have on this, when it's recommended to go from Greenbelt to Bramble, when it's in favour, when the officers want it to go through, whether members do or not, we always have, for a positive, this will reduce the need for housing because we're not reaching our land supply. We always had that. So I just want to know, can someone explain to me why that's not on there tonight? We always have it, it's always on there, and it's not. And it's one of the first applications we've had for a very long while where the officers are recommending refusal rather than acceptance. But if we were asking to accept it, I'm pretty certain it would have been on there. So I just want to know why it's not on there this time, for consistency. So if I can ask the Chairman.
Charles.
Yeah, Councillor Blake, yeah, you're quite right. It is a drafting error. So it should say, 5-year would help in respect to the 5-year land supply position. So yeah, there's a consistency issue. Obviously, every officer's doing their own kind of presentations, but that's something we'll take away.
Are you happy with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any more clarifications on this? Nobody? Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so, Thomas, can you just take us through in detail what the objection from the Highways Authority was to this proposal, please?
Yes, so it was... yes, so their response was that they considered that there was sufficient frontage to achieve the required visibility and width for the access. However, they had raised concerns about turning in and out of the site for larger vehicles, given the narrowness of Oak Road. And then they had also raised objections on the grounds of the site's unsustainable location, so where the plot is located in the borough, a lack of footways and a limited access to public transport.
You happy with that? Okay. Any more clarification, anyone? Nope. We'll go straight into members' questions, which is, can I call Len Gridley, please? Would you like to come forward and press the red button on the speaker, please? Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing us to speak. First thing I would like to bring to your attention is the lack of letters that came to the residents in Oak Road. There's 44 residents in Oak Road, and I can only trace 3 letters sent by this council. That's why there is very few public people here tonight. We only all found out about this on Sunday. Coming back to the matter, Oak Road is a single track road, no sewerage, only 3 street lights, and my property is the only one that's got a footpath outside that I put, so there's no footpaths in Oak Road. Totally unsuitable for development. If this development goes ahead, it will flood a lot of properties in Oak Avenue because of the water coming from the site. 22 properties, that would increase the properties in Oak Road by 50%. Totally unacceptable by the residents. It's a single track road. The travellers were turned down because of the road, so this site should be turned down on them grounds. Going for 22 houses when there's a bungalow either side, and the government policy and council policy is if there's a bungalow either side, there can only be bungalows in between, unless the council are changing their policy. I think this, as a development, should be thrown out and thrown out totally. There is other sites in Craighill that could take houses for this development to increase the houses in Oak Road and in other places in. But we're not against 22. If the person who owns the land wants to build a couple along there, residents have got no problem. But 50% increase in Oak Road is totally out of order, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grizzly. Can we call Max Strotton, please? Come to the front, press the red button. Thank you.
How's that? Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's my first time, so this is quite exciting. My name is Max Strotton, and myself and my family are the owners and operators of Crayside Cattery, which is located immediately next to the proposed development site. Our site has been used to care for animals for over 40 years and is a large licensed facility authorised by Basildon Council to accommodate up to 70 cats at any one time. We also employ around 7 staff members and frequently accommodate local university and college students to complete their educational work placements with us. We would like to make clear that we are not against development in principle. However, this proposal for 22 tightly packed homes is simply not appropriate for this location. It represents overdevelopment of a sensitive greenbelt site, and it would cause serious lasting harm to both the character of the area and the future of our animal care business. Our cattery depends on a calm, quiet environment. We are currently surrounded by gardens and open fields with no immediately adjacent domestic plots or residential disturbances. That tranquility is vital to the health and well-being of all of the cats in our care. This proposal would introduce dense housing directly alongside us, bringing garden noise, domestic pets and round-the-clock residential activity right up to our boundary. This poses a real risk of animal stress, operational complaints and a long-term conflict between land uses. This development is completely out of character with the surrounding area. Nearby plots are typically large, often around an acre each, and the open, low-density layout is part of what defines Oak Road. By contrast, this scheme attempts to squeeze 22 dwellings into a singular paddock, which would fundamentally change the visual and spatial identity of the area. We feel that the planning officer is right to recommend refusal. The scheme is too dense, unsustainable and inappropriate for its context. And even a reduced version would bring many of the same issues because the harm isn't just in the number of homes, it's in the nature of the development on this particular site. If, however, members are minded to approve this scheme, we would ask that conditions be added. Number 1, to prohibit bonfires and fireworks, as these will cause severe distress and health issues for the cats in our care. And number 2, require a substantial buffer zone to reduce visual and noise impact between the homes and our cattery, comprised of substantial hedgerow and fencing. In addition to that, the current proposed entry-exit point is on a slight incline, probably the most dangerous point on the road, which down that very road we've seen 2 fatalities in the last 12 to 18 months due to road conditions and speeding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max.
Do I need to press? Was that? Press that again, yeah?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Can I ask Andrea Kerslake, please? Thank you, Andrea. Wrong one. Press the red button.
Yeah, that's it. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I've been a resident down Oak Road for over 40 years. As previous residents have turned around and stated, there are various other plots of land with no dwellings on. So if you grant permission, it's going to open up the floodgates for other people to put significant dwellings on these areas of land. Also, majority of Oak Road doesn't have main drainage, so the properties will require collages with water being discharged into the ditch. The end of the road, Hardings Elms, severely floods in the winter because residents do not maintain their ditches. So with 22 properties and water backfilling, it will cause flooding to people's land and properties. Like people have stated, don't object to a couple of properties on the land. Obviously, we had the plan for Greenfield a few years back, which didn't develop into anything. And I suppose the main concern for a lot of residents is, you know, we apply for planning permission to build extensions, convert garages, and we get turned down on the basis that it exceeds permitted development rights, and it's also not in keeping with Green Belt. So if a lot of residents aren't able to improve their houses, make changes, which we feel will be beneficial to ourselves, the fact that this proposal is for 22 dwellings, it absolutely goes against what the community feel is acceptable planning. You know, if we can't build and improve our properties, why should someone get permission for 22 houses when there's no dwelling or existing dwelling there? Just want to echo as well with regards to the road, it's on a hill, on a bend, so feel that visibility is poor, and I don't think it's really a safe and acceptable environment to have 22 houses. And it's not in keeping with the local area. Everyone's got detached single properties. 22 is not in keeping. That's it.
Thank you, Andrea. I think we have Alan Gunn-Jones, who's remote. Have we?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Alan.
Good evening, Chair.
Would you like to begin?
Thank you. The applicants have asked me to address you this evening. They are the younger generation of the family who have owned this site for 43 years. They are not developers, but they are seeking to ensure that this site can play an important role in meeting the community's needs. At present, the site serves no function and contributes very little in Greenbelt terms. It is largely contained and not truly visible from the public realm. It is sandwiched between some kennels and residential buildings. It is grey land in the Greenbelt as your officers confirm. They claim that it fails the golden rules. These golden rules only apply to a major application. So we have a situation here that if it were less than 10, the golden rules wouldn't apply and the application might be recommended with a different outcome. However, reducing the number of dwellings could result in a criticism of underdevelopment. The application is in outline with all matters reserved apart from access. If it were considered that a layout based on the plot land typology would be more appropriate, then this will come forward at the reserved matter stage. In terms of ecology, the family did obtain a quote for carrying out all the surveys that Essex Place Services required. That cost came to in the region of £20,000, a considerable expense for the family, which was difficult to justify, particularly without a green light at the end of the planning tunnel, and the fact that the outcome of these surveys is unlikely to prevent some form of development on this site. Drainage details are more appropriately dealt with at the reserved matter stage when layout and quantum of built form are known. In terms of highways, the detailed design stage can demonstrate that access into the site can achieve what the County Highway Authority want to see. It is inevitable, due to the intense pressure for housing, that sustainability will be compromised. But this is not an isolated location. It is virtually surrounded on three sides by development of some form or other. In summary, the applicants are keen that their land can make a positive contribution to meeting the Council's needs. It serves no purpose at present and does not, in our view, contribute in any sense to the openness of the Green Belt. It is grey land in the Green Belt and can make an invaluable contribution to addressing the significant housing shortfall in the district, currently estimated at 1.88 years supply. Detailed design aspects, access, drainage, biodiversity, landscape, and the matters that the residents have raised of the proposed development will be considered at the reserved matter stage. It's not for this evening. This evening, the question is whether the principle of a residential development on this site is an acceptable one. It represents a unique opportunity to add to the Council's housing supply and ensure that the land serves a beneficial use. The applicants consider that the principle of a residential development on this site is a sound one, and they would not have invested in a pre-application consultation and in this planning application if they thought and were advised otherwise. They clearly hope that you will agree with their assessment and therefore grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We need to go into the back to the committee now. Is there any people that like to speak on this? Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm trying to find anything to disagree with the residents on here. It's looking at the site here. It's a very small site for 20 properties. It's in a rural location. Oak Road is not a main road. Usually, when we get large applications on the grey belt, they're on a main road connected to houses, like large housing estates all around them. There's a town centre just down the road. This site has none of those things, frankly. It's 22 properties on this square of land is really out of keeping with the rest of the area, as the residents have said, and even the applicant himself said that if this property was under 10 or if this development was under 10 properties, then it wouldn't need to stick to the golden rules, and residents themselves have said that they would possibly be open to a much smaller application on here. So I feel that that's the that's far more appropriate for this site than what's currently here. But yeah, this is it's very different to other grey belt applications that we've had in that it's not connected to a large area that's already built up. But yeah, I certainly can't support the applicant on this, and will be agreeing with the report of voting against.
Thank you, Alex. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Chairman. It's great to listen to the residents. They've got the local knowledge and they've got the voice, and that's been heard loud and clear this evening. And I say that because most of the residents along Oak Road, and I've been involved in Oak Road for many, many years, they want plotland policy. You know, that's what they crave, is what the lady said, you know. And it's never ever coming forward. And when they do put in for their plots, it all gets refused. So back to the application. Yes, I totally agree with the recommendation. It should be refused. But I will say it's an ideal application that I would love to see on something like what we had on Wash Road for 400 homes, because the same applies. All the flooding, you know, everything that goes on, but that doesn't apply because we got massive development. And on a small development like this, it's overcrowding, it's wrong, and it should be refused. But it's just that it just seems to me that you get one, as I say, ideal policy with fantastic reasons to refuse it on, but that doesn't apply when it's massive, large scale. And from where I represent, the Crouch Castleton ward and the former Steeple View, we have had so many large developments that this committee has approved that I think we should get away from that and just look into allowing the people to put in for their plotlands and give them what they want for a change. But I shall be supporting this because I don't believe that it should be approved. It should definitely go with a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Anybody else? Councillor Kevin.
Just a quickie, just confirming this is a private road, yeah? Yeah, yeah. It's not a private road. Good. That stops me making a fool of myself. That stops me making a fool of myself. Yeah. Good. So I'll scrub out what I was about to say. That it's about inconsistency by county highways. So it was going to be an attack on them. What I would like to say, an observation that the last two applications. Oh, you're ready now. Yeah. Just want to know the last two applications. What's an observation I'd like to make has been the concern of letters not being received by the residents. That's come up twice now on it. I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do to have a word with someone in authority to see what's happening there, because it's a concern when we've only got so few residents coming along. It's happened. I know it can happen now and again, but when we've had two applications coming tonight and both all said the same thing, it's just a bit of a concern. So if we could, that's just observation.
Any other? No. Just a quick one from me. Highways have made a report on this, which is nice to see, because I do agree with that. And I also agreed with Andrea Kerslake when she said about plot lanes and not being able to put an extension on or do whatever they want. I'm sure we can look at that in the future now, because it will be a grey area, I believe. I do agree with the recommendation this evening. So if we can go into the vote that the planning application number 230439 out be refused planning permission for the reasons set out in section 7.0 at the end of the report, All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry, is the relocation of an extractor fan at Lake Meadows, CAF, Lake Meadows, Lake Avenue, Billericay. Thank you. I think that's you, Thomas, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application site relates to a cafe known as Lake Meadows Cafe, located in the Lake Meadows Park in Billericay. To the north of the site is an open green space. To the south-east, set behind existing trees are residential dwellings, and to the west is Lake Meadows play area. The application has been brought to committee because the building is council owned. The cafe building is single storey and accommodates a cafe area, a kitchen and a storeroom with a terraced outdoor dining area to the front. The application seeks planning permission for the relocation of the ducting of an existing extractor fan which had been installed without planning permission. I just wanted to make members aware that an objection had been received by Councillor Turner due to the development being visually unsightly and noisy. This is the existing elevations of the building. So the ducting is at the top of the building on the flat roofed area. And then this shows the proposed elevations for the building. And then this just shows a comparison between the existing and the proposed roof plans. So the one on the left is the existing roof plan and the proposed is the one on the right. So the existing extractor fan is sited towards the rear of the cafe building. The relocated extractor fan will result in a redirection of the flue stack output, and this will result in a slight decrease in depth to the ducting of the extractor fan. The proposal is not considered to result in material harm to the character and appearance of the site. The proposed relocation of the extractor fan is not considered to be detrimental to the surrounding neighbouring occupiers, and environmental health have raised no objections. It's just some site photos. And so in conclusion, the application is recommended to members for approval, subject to the conditions identified at the end of the officer report on page 90. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Open to clarifications. Anybody? No? Okay. Open it up for members now. No? Kevin Blake.
Just clarity, it's got on here Borough Council, no comments have been received, but you did, so did that come in late then, you said about Councillor Turner? I'm reading it here, it says Borough Council, no comments have been received, and you said in your comment that Councillor Turner had said something, so I'm just wondering what's the...
Just make sure it's limited.
I mean, I didn't write the report for this particular application, so I don't know what point the comments were received from Councillor Turner. All I'm aware is that comments were received from Councillor Turner.
I do believe Ellie Hendry did it, but she's not here. So you've taken over, Thomas, that's right. Okay. Can do, just apologise because Thomas has taken over. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? We'll just go straight into the recommendation then. That planning application number 2500322 be granted planning permission subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice. All those in favour, please show. Any abstentions? 1. Anybody against? 1. It's granted. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Safe journey home.